You're watching the GI at E3 newscast, a title we probably should have come up with before we filmed the first episode. I'm James Batchelor, I'm editor-in-chief at GamesIndustry.biz. Joining me today is Chris Dring, our head of B2B at GamesIndustry.biz, which basically means that you run everything apart from editorial, although you do help out with that. Is that a fair way of summing up your many, many hats?
Yeah, I mean, editorial reports into me. I just have no power. is the way it works.
Basically, you're technically the boss, but I can say no.
Yeah.
And chuckling in the background in the other quarter or third of the screen is our special industry guest, first special industry guest of the week, Grant Kirkhope, composer of many, many games, but obviously Mario and Rabbids Sparks of Hope. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm very well, thank you very much. It's a good day today so far, so I'm all happy today, as opposed to miserable most of the time. So it's good to be jolly for once.
Is it Mario and Rabbids related jolliness? Are you excited?
It certainly is. Yes, I'm so pleased to get it out there. You know, I can stop being a secret anymore, and yes, it's great to get it out there. I got to score both the trailers, the gameplay, and the cinematic trailers. That lots of time you don't get to do that. Often they get licensed music or somebody else to do it, so it's nice to get us to do that. So yeah, I feel like I'm a part of the launch, which is nice.
Well, you've become like, I sat there, I was thinking about this, that you've pretty much been a fixture at the last 4 E3s, haven't you? I mean, there was the first Mario Rabbids in 2017. And then I missed this one. James was there, but the 2018 where you're on stage composing, which must have been conducting, sorry.
Yeah.
You weren't
composing would be great. On the screen, just Grant had a sheet of sheet music, frantically writing down.
That'd have been really boring to watch. Like this. I'm not very excited. Yeah.
That must have been amazing conducting, though, right? On the stage.
Well, it was fantastic that it all came off. But the months before that were fraught with just nonsense that I wasn't expecting. Like Mr. Davide Soliani, of course, my mentor. Said I would like you to write something for the launch of the Donkey Kong DLC. I said, oh yeah, fantastic. So that's no trouble. I wrote something. No, I don't want that. I want it all like Fantasia, like every little Tom and Jerry, every little thing had to be by the music. And I said, oh, all right, I'll do that. So it's complicated, lots of different time signatures, all over the place to try and get it to match the action. It's all a bit of a mess, So yeah, so I'm thinking that maybe we should get a live band to play. And I was like, what? Like, are you crazy? Like this is that's how are you going to do that? How are you going to get players on stage? So, no, I want that. Come on, let's do it. So I talked to Jason Hayes, my friend from Blizzard, who has got Critical Hit, and got lots of great players. I thought, well, they can play a bit and I'll put some in the background and it'll be all match up, on a click track and all that. And then Davide goes, yeah, and you want to conduct it? And I was like, what are you talking about? I haven't conducted since I was 18 or something. That's a long time ago, I said, no, it'd be great. People love it. I said, Davide, it's a nuts thing to do. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. And that's it. But oh no.
There you are. You do as you're told.
That wasn't how it turned out. And he's like, yeah, honestly, they're going to love it. And I was like, for crying out loud. If you told me that in the future, I might have made the music a bit easier. Sorry, in the past, I made it a bit easier. It's it was all over the place conducting the bloody thing,
Yeah.
Now I'm done for donkey's years. So anyway, it did turn out great. Who'd have thought it? But the rehearsals were a disaster over that weekend before the Ubi thing, the theatre there.
Yeah.
It was a disaster every day. Some of them went wrong. Or the headphones wouldn't work. Click tracks were going out of place. They started playing the wrong click track and the wrong track with our thing. So it was the wrong music a couple of times in the rehearsal. It was just I thought this is going to be an absolute unmitigated disaster. But lo and behold, it turned out all right.
Yeah.
So,
That's what
certainly from the audience, it seemed pretty good. So yeah, no, I think you managed to pull that one off.
Yes, I know. But I won't be doing it again, put it that way.
Well, and then the following year, where I was at, it was Banjo-Kazooie and Smash Brothers. So it was right. It's and now there's Mario and Rabbids again this year. So it feels like you're just basically a part of the E3 furniture now. It's
well, I guess I'm old enough, right? Bloody hell, I've been that many times. Christ, I guess I could be. Well, it's nice to go along and have something to talk about when you get there, kind of thing. So the Smash Brothers thing was super special because I think the fans went so mad for the Banjo-Kazooie thing. I've never known people go that crazy. Like the whole, watching some of the reaction videos on YouTube still make me cry watching them because people went absolutely nuts,
Yeah.
And I talked to the Nintendo guys at the booth. I said, well, I guess this is what it's like every time. So they're not really, So a lot of the characters don't get that kind of reaction that Banjo got. I guess because the fans were so starved after Banjo-Tooie, really, which is a long time ago, that they all just exploded.
Imagine how they'd react if Microsoft did something daft like make a new Banjo-Kazooie game.
Well, who'd have thought?
As long as they bring it onto a Nintendo platform, I think. I mean, that's part of the thing. Like Banjo's has come back on Xbox. It's just not it's not done that well. Whereas Nintendo fans, that's where Banjo's audience is, and that's where the disconnect is, I think. But
yeah.
Here's hoping for Nuts and Bolts 2 being announced tomorrow and then coming to Switch on Tuesday.
Yeah.
If they are announced, that's me. So all I can say is
well, the music won't be right then.
Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope obviously was the I was going to say big surprise of the Ubisoft Forward that we've just finished watching about an hour ago. I say big surprise, it wasn't, because some poor unfortunate soul at Nintendo pressed the button too early and the whole official website went live. How badly did your phone light up at that moment when it's like when a new Mario plus Rabbids is confirmed?
I just thought it's keep quiet. It's, you know, I was embargoed until 1:10, so I guess that's my time at, you know, PST. So I couldn't speak about it until 1:10 after the thing. So I still really can't speak about it. I've got to.
Yeah, of course. I'm expecting a call from Ubisoft's PR team in the morning.
Right,
to make it clear to take his listeners at home, we asked Grant to join us on the podcast before we knew anything about the fact there was a game being announced. So it was like, let's just chat about E3 and what's been announced. But it was
looking back to Rabbids King of Battle, like, you know, that all got leaked well before, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
Quite a bad reaction. People thinking, oh, it's a crazy idea. The Rabbids and Mario are going to be a disaster. You know, it kind of depressed the entire team because it was such a negative reaction to the thing. And then when you were there, Chris, you know, when they announced it, and it, you know, and Davide was crying, and we were all crying, and it got such a positive reaction, you know. And at that point, we're all thinking, oh God, it's going to be a nightmare. And we all knew the game was great, but when you tell somebody that concept of Rabbids and Mario, you just think, no, it's such a bad match, but it's such a great match. You know, Davide had the foresight to do it, you know, and all that, you know. So I think that crazy rabbidy thing mixes so well with Mario and all the rest of it. Like, Mario's sort of the straight man to those idiots, you know. So it works so well. So I mean, it was such a release, that E3, when it got announced, and everyone was like, oh my God, this looks like a great idea, and because it got such a bad reaction beforehand. But I think this time it's been, how on earth Nintendo, I don't know. I guess we probably don't know how that works. But I mean, you know, at least it wasn't too. It was only yesterday.
No, yeah. I mean, if you're like a normal, like I checked online just before I went to watch the thing, and I went, oh, and I saw it then. Like, if I hadn't have done that, most people would have watched this. That would have been the first time they saw it, and sort of a screenshot on a website isn't the same as actually watching it in action. That's the real reveal. I thought it was great. I was there. I remember being there, and I remember what an incredible reaction it was when Miyamoto sort of revealed the game. And I actually remember seeing you in the audience and tweeting, "Oh, Grant Kirkhope's in the audience," and you messaged me on DMs.
I was messaging you when we were sat there. Don't you remember? We were going, "Is that you? Is that you?"
Yeah, and then you were telling me to be quiet and stop telling people you were there. I remember it very well. It was one of my favorite E3 moments, actually. But obviously Davide, he seems to have got a bit of arrogance about him now. He seems still a bit full of himself on that video. Just
absolute diva. I mean, what a nightmare to deal with.
that relationship that you two have got is delightful. I think it's like, you don't know.
And my wife said to me, really, David is like your best friend these days. I said, he probably is. I mean, like, we just talk all the time. And, you know, the thing about David is, I mean, you just talked to him, Chris, he's a really genuinely, absolutely passionate, you know, guy about video games. And I kind of feel like, it's like in the back in the Banjo-Kazooie days, the teams at Rare, everybody felt like that back then. And that's why I think those kind of games in that kind of golden period of Rare back then were good, because everybody had really had that absolute passion, us against the world type thing, you know. And I think when you've got that in your soul, I'm a great believer in that, but I mean, you can't fail but to make a good game. You've really got that absolute thing where you're just almost too scared to break it, you know. And I feel like the Milan team were just brilliant like that, you know. Every one of them was like, felt that Davide passion, you know. I felt the Davide passion, and I mean, I think it makes such a difference to when you're making something. I think if you're all like that, it just bleeds into the game. You can't help it. A lot of people kept saying to us about Mario Rabbids, the King of Battle, was like, I can feel the passion in the game. You can't fake that. It's just the way it bleeds in there, you know.
I do actually think it came out in 2017, which was the same year Breath of the Wild and Horizon Zero Dawn and Mario Odyssey came out. And I actually think, even the game's like the most successful third-party Switch game, I think definitely in the US, I think in Europe as well. And so it's been very successful, but I feel like it almost got, it was so good. Like it's proper, in my mind, it's a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 at least, but it's all got drowned out by the fact that there was these 3 super games. That was like such an unusual year for video game quality. But
Mario Odyssey, for God's sake. I mean, that is the prime Mario game. You can't get away from that, and that we were thinking, oh, we're just going to get lost, But we'd been Mario Rabbids. It's kind of the first game. It's just kind of kept on selling for the entire time it's been out.
Yeah.
It really has just gone up and up and up. It's not one of those kind of peak and then down it goes. It's just kind of gone like that, So I think people discover it later and then realize that it's a great replayable game. It's got a lot of fun in it. It's got a bit tuned by me in it, etc.
It's got a good Donkey Kong DLC. You've worked, because now you've done sort of because this is it. Because I've heard stories, right? I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but I've heard stories about what it's like working with Nintendo. They're very particular, right? And I know that you worked with Nintendo years ago when you were at Rare. I suspect it's a bit different now. But you've been based Mario and Donkey Kong and Banjo, I guess, in Smash Brothers, working with them quite a while. Do you think you got them nailed now? They know, then you know what they like. You know what's gonna.
For the trailer for Sparks and Hopes, I had to do a little arrangement with the Rosalinas, the Conservatory.
I know what you mean.
Astral Observatory,
from
Galaxy.
Yes, Christ Almighty, I'm getting old. But so I'm not to run through Koji Kondo again because I did a version of the Castle theme from Mario 64 for Mario Rabbids. As to run, Mr. Kondo's got to have his word on it, and I did make a couple of mistakes like I usually do. So I've had a little, it kind of comes from Ubisoft to me. Nintendo Ubisoft, can you please change these notes? I had to put a couple of. It wasn't like it was wrong. It was just it's hard to describe it, but I had the arrangement wrong again. So it's those moments are super special. Thinking that Mr. Kondo is actually he's a Jedi Master. I'm just a Padawan, right? I mean, you know what I mean? It's like to think that he's looking over my stuff is like it's scary, but also my God, he actually knows who I am. It's like it's crazy, really. So,
did you watch the live stream at all, or did you just wait for the reaction?
No, I watched all of it. No, of course I did. Yeah. I didn't know it was going to come. They don't tell you that. I thought it might be the start. I didn't know it was going to be like the premium game at the end.
Apart from the Avatar. Avatar. Avatar surprised me actually.
Yeah, that looked fantastic. I thought amazing.
Yeah, it was. Rainbow Six, sure, lots of Rainbow Six and Rocksmith. That's a cool game. I think that's fine. Just Dance, of course, will be there. Mario and Rabbids had been leaked before, so that was sort of thing. And then they just went, and then one more thing, which I thought would have been Mario and Rabbids, and it was. That's stunning looking. I think it looks stunning. James, what do you think?
I thought it looked really good. Like it was one of those games that's like we've known it's existed for a while because Massive Entertainment had mentioned the way they're working on an Avatar game for years now, and it was when it was something I was like, oh yeah, we haven't seen that yet, and it's like it looks amazing. Very one of those kind of like CG concept trailers. We don't really get a sense of the game, but it looks like it. Given Massive track record, it looks to me like it would be a good kind of multiplayer experience in the kind of world of Pandora. And like, as much as I enjoyed the first Avatar film, I don't think it's like kind of the best film of all time, but visually it is stunning, and it looks like they've really nailed that kind of unique alien look.
It's been like 11, 12 years since Avatar. I've forgotten, let alone I've forgotten it all existed. Like, it was one of the biggest movies of all time, but I just
latest film tie-in ever.
But it's
it's a bit like Golden, hasn't it? Coming out years after the movie came out, it's like
sort of took on a life of its own. That game, it's like, but I'd always likened GoldenEye the game to FIFA in that because FIFA, the football game, is nobody. When you say FIFA, everyone thinks video game, right? And even though it actually stands for the footballing trade, body, and then people say GoldenEye. You say it to somebody, and that you can sit there and work out: are they thinking the film or are they thinking the game? And there is genuinely I find it alternates. When I talk about GoldenEye, they start talking about playing as Oddjob, and I'm like, oh no, I was talking about the movie. It happens all the time to me.
Yeah.
It's wonderful thing. I guess we should talk a little about the Ubisoft press conference, because I guess this is what the point of this cast, the news cast is. But but obviously Grant's here, so I'm conscious that Grant's not like he's not. Was there anything else that stood out for you, Grant? Was there anything else that you liked?
I think Ubisoft are a really strong company. I'm not just saying that because I work for them. I really do. I think they consistently have high quality products. Everything they do, and I know that what the ethos is like within the company, how they kind of do things. So I wasn't surprised that it would look great. I must admit, I do like Just Dance. I think it's a great thing. And my kids used to play it when they were little, and they probably still have a go to it now if I got it out and had a go on it. They still think it's great. My wife was up doing it all the time. And I know David and the guys used to look and Let's Just Dance before. I think it's a great thing. It's a great fun thing when you're a bit drunk to get up and have a go, right? I think
it was so Just Dance as a game. So obviously it was massive in the Wii era, and then it sort of faded away a little bit. But it came back massively last year. I think because of the pandemic and people being stuck at home and then needing social things to do with their family, it was a real hit. Like, it was bigger than a lot of the big AAA games they released last Christmas. It was huge.
It was one of those blinking missed details. I was making notes at the time, so I believe, is this the first Just Dance that is not going to be on Wii? Because they've still been producing it for the original Wii over the last few years. It was my understanding, and this is the first one that's only going to be Wii U and upwards.
It's on Wii U.
I don't know why it's on Wii U, but then I know why it was still on Wii. So
the thing is, the Wii remotes, fun fact, for like 3 or 4 days early on in the pandemic, Wii remotes reappeared in the Amazon top 10 charts. There was suddenly, because loads of people just bought the Wiis, right, stuck them in their cupboards. They just picked out, not real gamers. They are real gamers, but not people that are active gamers. And they bought it for Wii Sports, put it in the cupboard. And now the pandemic came out, they got them out again. They find their Wii remotes didn't work, and they needed another one because they've had a kid since then or something. And it sort of came back. So, I can believe why you'd still support it, because there's still a lot of people that bought that console that perhaps haven't bought another one since. But
yeah, there's millions out there, isn't there? I've got to say, like, what are your guys' favorite E3 moments from the years gone by? What's been your thing you've kind of always remembered? What's it been?
If we're talking Ubisoft stuff, like, I was quietly hoping, this was one of the moments, going back to the Mario Rabbids, this is one of the moments where I was kind of ashamed that this is a digital thing rather than an event, a physical event. Because Mario Rabbids always makes me think of, rather than the game, makes me think of that moment where you've got Yves Guillemot and Shigeru Miyamoto holding guns on stage in front of the massive banner. And I always remember that. I was quietly hoping, like, if they're going to announce a new one, like, if the pandemic hadn't happened, what we should have had was Shigeru, Yves, Davide, you, maybe Shintaro Furukawa, all up there with guns again, recreating that shot this year. I think that would have been great. This is the real sign of what we haven't got this year.
Well, that thing when Davide is such an emotional guy, he's a typical Italian, right? And like when he bursts into tears, I think that was a really brilliant moment. When so many people like commented about that, like whether they like the game or not, and he couldn't believe that Mr. Miyamoto had said his name on a microphone live. To him, it's like it was the ultimate unbelievable compliment that he even just mentioned his name. And like those moments, I always think about that. Those moments just in games just show you what games can do to people. And I always remember things, little bits like that, that where people just go break down and cry, whatever it is. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. Like, when I watched E3 as a kid, I say kid, when I was sort of a teenager or early university years, I remember when Miyamoto came out on stage swinging the sword of Zelda and all those iconic moments. When I actually became, when I started working started going to E3, and it started becoming a lot of work, and I love the show. I just get very excited about it. I always do. But my favorite moments were always those weird small ones. I remember a couple of years ago, I interviewed an Activision exec, right? Because I'm working the business journalism. We interview suits, and they're fine people, but they're not the ones with the passion. They're not the Davides. No. And I interviewed Eric Hirschberg, who's the Activision, who's in charge of Activision publishing. He's basically number 2 to Bobby Kotick. And I started talking about the fact that Crash Bandicoot was coming back and nostalgia. And I referenced Twin Peaks coming back. This was a couple of years ago, since around Twin Peaks return. And he said, "Oh, I worked on the marketing for the Twin Peaks back in the 80s, early 90s. So wow. Like, no way." And then the interview was 30 minutes. I was 10 minutes in. I never asked another question about Activision. The next 20 minutes was me and Eric like connecting over a love of Twin Peaks. And it's those moments that I love. And it was actually a really good interview. Like, I got away with it when I went back. But it was I loved the last E3, which was quite quiet by E3 standards. And actually one of my favorite memories about it was that I went for dinner with the people that make those statues, Versa figure statues, and it was a really really lovely chat with a load of people, just talking, very, very excited about the things they do. And then it was I was actually invited, but you gate crashed the Frontier party. Or it wasn't party, it was a sort of bar. They booked out a room where you can get a few beers, and it was me, you, and Andy. And honestly, that just doing little things like that is what and then getting excited about the things that you saw and played, and just gossiping about things. That's what I love about E3. So when people talk about E3 moments, I can talk about the time I walked with Jack Black, or the moment Kanye West barged in front of me in the queue, or all these little like, oh my God moments. The time I get a street past Miyamoto or stuff like that. We've all got those sort of moments. One of my funniest moments was also at that last E3 when I was in the toilet and Strauss-Zelnick was going for a wee, and somebody came along wanting to shake his hand. It was of all people, Strauss-Zelnick, the CEO of Take-Two. He's not like, and he just said, "Oh, I'm such a big fan," and he just stood there awkwardly while Strauss is trying to go for a wee. It was I thought, oh, E3 only. But there. What about Coco Grant? You've been to so many. I mean, I've seen the pictures on Twitter of you and your rare days at the show. You must have some stories.
I was just thinking about that. Actually, I was thinking the one E3 that was great but slightly scary was Banjo's, when Banjo got announced, whatever, 1996, whatever it was. I think that one there. That's my first E3 I went to, and I was to me, to be in America, just with the rest of the lads, at an E3. With a game, and I was also doing GoldenEye 2, so I was also on both games at that time. They're both getting like a show at the E3, and I was super excited just to be here, and all that, and just being in LA and going out for drinking and all that stuff that you do. But I remember we had that thing where I've probably told the story, but when we were staying at the Biltmore, I used to stay at the Biltmore Hotel downtown, and we had a private meeting room in the basement somewhere booked out to meet with Howard Lincoln.
The old Instead of America.
Well, yes, of course.
Yeah.
He was like, number 2 to Mr. Arakawa, so he's like a big deal, And it was all about Banjo-Kazooie, and it was like June or whatever it was. We were supposed to be out that Christmas for Banjo-Kazooie, and we all knew we were never going to make it. There was no way we were going to do it. But he just sort of, he walked in, everyone sort of went, "Oh God, here he comes." And we knew we were going to get a talking to, and he didn't really know we weren't going to make it because no one had told anybody that. So he just sat down. He said, "Yes, my name's Howard Lincoln. I'm the whatever it is from Nintendo America. We have $5 billion in the bank and no debts." That was his first opening statement. That
sets the tone, doesn't it?
Colour of your face sort of drains at that point, going, "Oh, we're going to get absolutely bollocked here." So just to let you guys understand, that Nintendo have made certain commitments to Banjo-Kazooie for this Christmas, and he just reeled off. We've actually spent $20 million on an advertising campaign with whatever it was. We have another $10 million on that, and it just listed these costs that they'd entailed already. So he said, obviously you understand that it would be very bad if you guys didn't make it for Christmas,
He knew, didn't he?
we were just going, "No problem, Howard. It's going to be there." It's not a problem, like this. Oh, absolutely shitting ourselves, going, "God, if he knew, he'd shoot us all right now, dead." And I remember we got back to England, and Tim and Chris Stamp had to communicate to Nintendo that we weren't going to make it, And of course, at that point, we were all safely at home, so there was no worries. I remember Nintendo saying, "Look, what have you got that we could give us? We've got all this money spent. And they said, "Well, we've got this racing game, RC Pro, whatever it's called at the time. It's got all these rare characters in it, like Banjo-Kazooie." He said, "Well, look, just stick the Kongs in it. We'll have that instead." And so Diddy Kong Racing was like, stick the Kongs in it. Yeah. Banjo's in there. We'll have that instead. They got all our advertising budget, sold a gazillion copies. They all bought bloody Porsches and all that, the rest of it. And we were all sat there really glum, going, "We just missed that by a mile." Yeah. All that money that we could have had has just gone to the Diddy Kong Racing team.
But Banjo did all right. It did all right.
Yeah. Oh no, in the end, great. But I think it was just that thought of actually being sat down by Howard Lincoln, and he's a very straight talking, quiet spoken man. There's not a flicker of any emotion, just facts that you guys know. This is going to be really bad if you miss it. We've spent all this money, and just to let you know how bad that would be. And one of the guys at the program was Graham Smith. He was so frightened that he wouldn't go out that night. He just sat in his hotel room shaking. He wouldn't come out with us for drinks, and I've got to think about it.
No.
So there you go.
Oh, can you imagine that happening now? It would be like,
my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd. I can imagine that, because I've forgotten about Howard Lincoln. I can imagine what that was I can imagine just exactly I can imagine exactly what that would be like.
Oh yeah, you read that the Game Over book, right? Or the game, what's it called? The book about Nintendo. Is it Game Over?
Yeah. It's Game Over, isn't it?
He featured that a lot, wasn't he? Him and Mr. Eric Howard literally went shop to shop selling the NES, didn't he? Like, and did that mass. And when they got that whole Donkey Kong thing with the MGM movie thing, that whole story about how that MGM thought they were going to own the name.
Oh right, yeah.
Remember, and then but Nintendo knew it's public domain. And I think I remember the story where they had a massive meal. The MGM guys, I think it was MGM, was saying, we're sort of going, yeah, we're all sorted. We're going to keep we're owning the names. We're going to get some of the game. We're going to pay the royalties, all that kind of thing. And then he says they walked to the lift, didn't they? They're all shaking hands, all jolly. And just as the lift door was closing, Carl Dickens goes, actually, no, that's not right. We're not doing that. And the lift like that was it. Because he knew it was public domain and they couldn't sue them over it. And they waited to the deal to get out, didn't they? And he said, just as the elevator door shut, no.
Yeah.
That was it.
Amazing.
Some of the stories from those early days of games development are. I had a call with many years ago. I did a story about how E3 got started, and some of the stories about what went on between particularly Sony and Nintendo, and Sony and Sega, and all this kind of stuff in those early days was very similar. Right, it was quite brutal in a way. But you like to think we're all matured a bit, maybe, hopefully.
I must admit, I sort of feel that because they're all doing their own little things now, not actually on the show floor. I don't like that. I wish everyone was just on the show floor again, not doing their own thing and all that,
Yeah, I think that's. I think the thing is, the tricky thing with E3 is justification. Like back in those days, right? You were on the show floor because you had retailers coming over, going, right, what games am I going to stock? What am I giving shelf space to? And then retails become, over the years, sort of less significant, and then it sort of media became the big thing. E3 was the opportunity to get games in front of the BBC, and not just the gaming press, but all of the media. And nowadays, the BBC and those sort of places, CNN, they actually have gaming reporters. And although they still will report significantly at E3, it's not the only time they talk about it. So the role of E3 has sort of become challenged as a show floor. But as a week, which is what we're seeing at the moment, right? Everyone's announcing stuff. Everyone's gone together to do this big live stream. As a week, it clearly still matters. So I think it's just a case of that show floor working out what it's supposed to be. Who is it for? Is it for the media? Is it for the games industry to get together? In which case, it probably needs to become less like a consumer show. Or is it is it for gamers? And if it's for gamers, it needs to become more like a consumer show because everything's behind closed doors. Or is it a bit of both? But I think that's the challenge, is just working it out. But I think everyone wants it. I do these interviews at E3, and everyone who's at Bethesda and Microsoft, whenever I ask them about what do you think the future of E3 is, they say the same thing you do. They say people need to come together. This is an opportunity for us to show off what we've got going. And it's just, I think you're right. I think I'd like to see that continue, because I think E3's been with us 26 years.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm going to say, I think my first E3 was 96. That's almost that was 25.
That was the second. That would have been the second one, I think.
Really?
So it was.
I didn't know that at the time. I just thought it was like it was been on forever. I didn't know that.
I think before then it was CES. They used to go to CES, and then they went to then when in the US, when the whole age ratings thing came up and the ESA was formed, that's when they went, we might as well do our own trade show and come out of CES. I think, if I remember correctly, Sega were very angry with CES because it had rained or something in Vegas, and it rained, and because they were stuffed outside in the corner, it rained on all their Mega Drives or whatever it was they were promoting, and they genuinely were furious with it, and they said, we need our own show, we're big enough. And that's kind of how E3 was formed, and now it sort of feels like it's under threat. But I've been watching the live stream, and it's actually, I'm looking at it because I paused it. It was there. I'm quite impressed by how many people are watching. Actually, it seems to be quite busy.
Yeah,
so,
but I think back, for like me being as a developer at Rare back in those days, like to get to, because Rare used to always say, if your game's on show, the whole team goes, and that was very generous, really, because a lot of people just send one or two. Rare would say the whole team's going, that's it. To be over here and going out and drinking on a night time and all that, just I feel that was a fantastic bond for all the teams that did it. It really was. And then, of course, it got a bit, in the Microsoft days, it started changing to that they wanted you to work the show floor. So you had to stand by the machines, and sort of advise people, and that got a bit like, well, it's a bit like working now. It's not as fun anymore. People do the work, but I'm not doing that, and like, famously, because I used to have super long hair, and I used to sort of stand like this, by the machine, and I never got asked once by anybody to show them anything. And they used to go, Grant, you look so bloody miserable and in such a bad mood. no one ever speaks to you. We do all the showing. You just stand there like a and no one dares talk to you. You think you got such a black face, like, my God, I hate it being here. That never. So he said, "What's what you been here?" I just go bugger off and go to something else.
Yeah.
Like that, you know.
The first time I met Greg
Mails.
Sorry.
To be fair, I always do feel sorry for anyone who's working at a trade show like E3. So particularly like those who are stuck in the same like booth or hotel room or cupboardless kind of room, like windowless room where they're showing the same behind the scenes demos like all week. And then like just the amount of work that goes around it. Like, so with Gamescom, for example, Gamescom is 4 or 5 days, and then there's a couple of days set up beforehand. But by and large, that's kind of it. I remember the one E3 that I've been to, I think it was 2018. The one time I've been, I was talking to someone from one of the platform holders, and they were like, they had been in obviously like the week before to set up and rehearse and prepare everything for the show. Then they were kind of talking to the press and arranging demos and doing this all the week. And then the following weekend, because the entire company, like all the teams from around the world are in the same place, they then had a weekend full of like strategic company meetings. And it was something close to 2 solid weeks of working. And those are long days. You're on your feet the whole time. You're like, and it's like, I do pity, as much as journalists can win, it's like, well, we've got to keep walking back and forth between the 2 halls. Like, yeah, but that's about it.
The slight difference with journalists is that, I mean, I do know, because the rare teams still do that. They still stand on they're still the people on the booth doing the thing. I think Greg, first time I met Greg Mails was when he showed me Sea of Thieves on the show floor. But I was the thing is different to journalists, I think, because it is a lot more exciting for journalists. We get to move about, we get to see people, we get to play the games. But for us, it's like when the show floor ends, we don't then go for dinner and then go to the bar. When the show floor ends, we go for dinner and then we go back to the hotel and then we write all the articles that we have to do, and then we're on the podcast, and it's just like it's a bit relentless. But I say it's exciting and I miss it, and I hope it comes back.
Yeah, sorry, but when we launched the first ukulele game, like it was me and Steve Wales were doing all, and Andy were doing all the talking, right? So I'd never really done that before. So that was absolutely exhausting. Like I've never, those, me and Andy sat in that booth and with Steve Wales, and Andy showed the game, me and Steve did the talking, and like it was non-stop every half an hour for the entire E3. And like I've never done that before, and it was absolutely exhausting. Like I just thought you lose your voice, you catch the plague, and all the rest of it, like you always do at E3, and like that was really tough. And I kind of thought, now I know what these people are going through, because I was just kind of swanning around before, thinking this is a great fun. I'm in LA, let's have a bit of a laugh, But it wasn't like that. And then I came back again for the next year for ukulele again, so we actually physically launched them, as opposed to this church, So did that with Andy for 2 years, and I thought, I'm not doing that again. It's too much. Absolutely, really exhausting. You just got to keep saying the same things every half an hour, or 15 minutes, whatever it is, with different journalists and kind of thing. And like it gets absolutely really hard work. Like, and Gab Price is sat at home going, "Oh, this is great. The game's going great." Like, Christ, they'll have to talk about ukulele one more time and crack some kind of joke with Steve that's, I'm just going to kill myself.
Oh dear.
Well, at the risk of kind of, because I feel like we can keep going down the rabbit hole of reminiscing about E3's past. Should we talk about the Ubisoft lineup again a little bit more? Just kind of, because what do you guys think of the overall lineup? Because Chris, you were saying on our kind of our Slack chat, a little kind of behind the scenes, that you miss weird Ubisoft. Like this did seem very kind of straight Ubisoft, and I think, as we were saying, like in kind of yesterday's show, that obviously there's no way of looking at any of these lineups and knowing what they should have been if there hadn't been any kind of pandemic-induced like delays or cancellations. But I looked at Ubisoft's lineup tonight, and it's like, right, Rainbow Six Extraction, which is a game we already knew about and is kind of in redesigned. It's the first time we've really seen it, but it's not a new property. There was a lot about updates to established titles. They're obviously doing more support for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It was the first time they've done like a year 2 kind of support, a lot of kind of seasonal stuff for Rainbow Six Siege. Overall, though, it was kind of Ubisoft by the numbers, and kind of it kind of ticked every box of what you expect to see from Ubisoft. That was my thoughts. I'll get yours, Chris.
Because the thing is, I think games industry's changed, right? And these are Ubisoft are still making Rainbow Six Siege, and they released it years and years ago, and that's just the way it is. They service-based games are the way things are. Games are taking so much longer to make. Like we saw Mario Rabbids, right? That game came out in 2017, so this is 4 years later, and it's not come out till next year. It'll be 5 years since we saw the game last. This is how long games are making these days. Grant used to turn out games every 3-4 months back in the 90s.
I wish.
But so I kind of think we're heading towards that thing. And also it's E3, like I remember I get excited because I'm not really into the sort of normal shooty bang stuff, right? GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, when I was a kid, sure, but I'm not really into those sort of things. And so when I see Ubisoft do Rainbow Six and Assassin's Creed and Far Cry, I sort of so it's not my thing, but it's what the gamers want. It's what the E3 audience want. And I feel that the days where PlayStation would start talking about their sales figures and then show off Wonder Book, right, or Move stuff, or I kind of think those days are over. And I
do miss the sales figures. I miss the graphs. We used to get graphs. Don't you miss the graphs?
Well, I do, but I don't think gamers do. So I actually thought it was actually pretty good, because this is generally I thought they maybe spent a bit long talking about Rainbow Six, but I thought there was quite a few games there. I think if you're a fan of, and also it's a thing like we watched Geoff Keighley's thing the other day, and everyone went about how great it was, but actually there wasn't a single thing in that presentation I was excited about. And I've just watched the Ubisoft one, and I wasn't excited about most of it, but Mario plus Rabbids is one of my favorite games the last 5 years. So for me, the fact that it was announced as a sequel, even though I kind of expected it at some point, I was really excited to see it, and it looked brilliant. Right? It's got the I only played Galaxy for the first time about 6 months ago. So for me, I was really getting a big, and I couldn't believe, we got Grant on the podcast, and it was just announced on my. So I was like, it was the most excited I've been so far. So I think it just depends on who you are. If you're a big Rainbow Six fan, that was the best E3 press conference you've ever seen. If you're, so I think it's just the way the industry is.
I was talking to a developer I was trying so hard not to kind of do that thing that all of us do, particularly journalists, which is like put like snarky little tweets on Twitter, like doing the hilarious hot takes. I tried my absolute damnedest not to do that, but kind of some of the stuff around Rainbow Six Extraction just kind of wound me up a little bit, purely because I'm a big fan of the original Rainbow Six novel. It's like one of my favorite of the Tom Clancy novels, and that Extraction is so far from the source material. It is absurd.
It seemed like Perfect Dark to me. Was it about aliens? And
it was. Well, there seems to be some confusion. Like, so originally it was, when it was Rainbow Six Quarantine, it was zombies. And now they're putting it Rainbow Six Extraction, and it's about aliens, and it's like, but zombie-like aliens. But there was still. But there was still Ubisoft hosts apparently on like the post show still saying
it was actually the E3 post show.
Oh, the E3
it was just normal. It was just like a bunch of journalists.
Right.
I mean, that sounds really dismissive of them. I'm sure they're very brilliant journalists. It wasn't like Ubisoft got the script wrong. It was different people talking about it.
But I mean, like, if you think like where the
Go on.
I was just say, like, how hard is it to actually wow somebody with a game at E3 these days? It's not that easy, right? Because everything's pretty much known most of the time. There aren't that many brand new things that keep popping out the woodwork, that often. Yeah. So I kind of feel like getting a real absolute wow, like I guess like Mario Rabbids got the first time around. It's difficult because you just people are involved in lots of sequels these days, and the games do run for a lot longer than they used to do. Used to maybe 1 or 2 sequels and that was it. Like I kind of feel like it's just so hard to have people, especially like seasoned journalists like yourself, to get you excited about something. It's pretty hard, right? So
yeah,
I do feel for companies, who maybe haven't quite got the game they want to have this year, but because it's running a bit late, whatever, it might be next year.
Yeah, and they also sorry.
Particularly for a company like Ubisoft are famed for their kind of technology sharing, and it's kind of become a joke in that like a lot of the elements across their games are shared across different properties. So you can kind of see the DNA of the past releases in anything new they show off. So Riders Republic, that extreme sports game they were showing off, like a lot of it looked like kind of Steep or The Crew or kind of a mix of those. But then there were like elements of just visually there were elements of kind of the it looks a bit like Far Cry New Dawn in terms of that kind of very kind of rustic kind of landscape with a lot of kind of neon paint. It felt almost like Watch Dogs 2 style in terms of that trying tapping into the younger, and it all looks like a kind of an amalgamation of the stuff that has come before, which makes it even harder to make something wow, because it's not 100% new, if that makes sense.
I also think for Ubisoft in particular is that they got into a situation, and the companies do this all the time, where they just announce a little bit too much stuff too early.
Yeah.
So they've got to the point where games got delayed because of COVID, but games also got delayed because they just got delayed. And we've got to that point now where we're kind of showing the same thing. Sony did it last generation. Like they had the really amazing E3s, like 3 on the trot. And then the other E3s just became repeating what they'd shown in the previous years, because they sort of hadn't really got round to releasing them yet. And it's just, I think it's just the way game development is. It's so hard to predict. You want to get people excited, so you tease a game at the end of it and then you release it 5 years later. So it's
don't you think? I always think to myself, the game just get announced too early now these days. The game will be announced, it'll be out next year. I kind of feel like, shouldn't they just wait till that year to announce it? That would be much better to do that.
Well, the way it works in movies, right? Then Marvel will announce they're doing a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and then that's it. We're doing a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, and then they won't say anything more about it until the movie's basically been shot, and then they'll show a load of it at a Comic-Con, like 6 months, maybe 12 months before they actually release the film. And I think that's probably where we need to go. It also helps manage sort of crunch, I guess, where you're not trying to rush everything. You can announce the games. Like Mario and Rabbids, the first one, was announced in June and released in August, right? And it worked very well for that.
I like that. But when you can, then it's a real surprise. So you're like, oh my god, we can't believe this is coming out. I like it to be like that. I feel like sometimes this game just get announced to be a bit too early. I guess maybe they haven't got anything to show, and so they've got to talk about the next year's game because they haven't got anything else to show at this year's E3. So I do feel like games get announced a bit early these days. So it's always a weird way.
I feel like Bethesda used to suffer that the worst. So like it worked brilliantly for them with Fallout 4. Fallout 4 they announced, and then 6 months later it was out, and that worked brilliantly. Like you've got sudden build of excitement, sequel to the really kind of popular Fallout games, and it was out and it went down really well. And then they obviously grew to the point where they were doing their own E3 showcase every year. But obviously, like they weren't as big or as prolific or a publisher in terms of how much they put out as, say, Ubisoft or EA or Xbox and Sony. And he got to the stage of like they announced like Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 a couple of years back. Those is still years away, and yet there's that expectation because they announced it. I'd agree, too early.
Another thing, though, another reason why they do announce stuff early, though, to sort of add a bit of defense, like Grant, Perfect Dark was announced, like new Perfect Dark was announced last year, right? And everyone got really excited about that. And that game is years away, right? It's like but the reason why they announced it is because they want people to join the studio. They've got a new studio. Nobody really knows what they're working on. I think Fable was the same. It's Fable last year, similar thing. They kind of said, come work for us. We're working on Perfect Dark. And that is sort of what that trailer was. And then we won't see it for a while. But it does sort of ruin the surprise when it's, I love it. Nintendo are quite good at announcing late. They don't do it all the time, but it's not unusual for them to go, we've got a game, like Mario Rabbids is a good example. We've got a game and here it is. It's out in a couple of months. They used to announce games in June and release them at Christmas. That was their thing for a good few years. But
I was thinking if you could say, here's the game, it's out, you can order it right now. You can go and buy it in the shop right now. I mean, that would be amazing to go, I can go and buy this right now and play it. Like, I think that's so exciting to do that.
That's something you more get from the indie space, though. So I believe earlier today was the Wholesome Direct, which is a kind of a stream by a group who kind of focus on the kind of the wholesome, the non-violent, the cozy sort of games, not the typical AAA stuff. And a few of those, my understanding is that a few of those were like, hey, this is a game that we kind of announced a while back. We've been working on it, and it's out now. And it's like, that's quite cool. That's a really cool little moment.
You did that. You mentioned Fallout 4 E3, which was, I remember us being there. They announced the Fallout Shelter game, and they released it the same day, which was the thing. It does happen, but it doesn't happen with the big, like nobody's done it with like Zelda. It's Tetris 99 was one that for me, which is one of my favorite Switch games, which is the Battle Royale Tetris, which is who thought of that. That was announced and released at the same time because nobody's going to leak it, right? It's just not the sort of thing.
Yeah, I guess
you're the sort of thing that's going to leak out.
You're limited. You can only really do that with digital only games. Because physical games, there are too many people involved, like, the production of, the disc, the packaging, getting it into retail, sticking it in the, you're not going to be able to have it in stores around the world. And every single member of staff at all these stores, retailers are like, I can't say anything until we've got to rush out and put them on the shelves because it's just gone live.
I think if there's one company that could do it, it's probably Valve and Half-Life. They could probably go, here's a new Half-Life game, you can buy it now, download it on Steam. I think they could do it. I don't know if any others could.
Well, they did say that there's some sort of tease, like some sort of special message about the future of Valve, like at Steam Game Fest at like the end of the week. So maybe that's Half-Life. Maybe Half-Life Alyx was just a kind of little tease, little prequel for the Half-Life 3 they've been working on all along.
If you played that game, it's brilliant.
No, I have not. No, yeah, I do want to. Yeah.
Well, so actually, what do you think about, like, for instance, again, like Perfect Dark? It's an old IP from a long time ago. Do you think anybody, apart from people of a certain age, know what Perfect Dark was originally? Like, how many people remember that for what it was and want to buy it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I always wonder about that. Like, you think, Banjo's an old game. You always think, is the audience still there because they've all maybe moved on or got older and stopped playing games? I don't know, whatever. It seems like, I don't know about that to me.
Well, it's interesting. So there is so we've got this nostalgia is a bit. I can talk for ages, Grant. Sorry. Nostalgia.
Don't we know?
Nostalgia is I did done a lot of research into this. So nostalgia is very popular. Games from about 20 years ago tend to come back. So when people are in their mid-30s, right, they're missing their youth. Right, they missed the days when they didn't have kids and they had a bit of time for themselves. And then suddenly that film, that Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park, like, that came back. X-Files came back. Those things from the 90s. It was it was 80s, early noughties, and then it was 60s and the 90s. Right, it was things like Austin Powers. You got these sort of people going, oh, hang on, when I was a kid, that's what I used to watch. Oh, that's what I sort of stuff I used to like. And so when you do a remake, like a Crash Bandicoot remake that happened and sold incredibly well, it's because it appeals to those sort of older people wanting to relive their youth a little bit. When you do an entirely new game based on a really old IP, you're effectively doing a new game, right? But just trying to sort of base it in the past. And we've not seen much success with that, genuinely. Like, it's because you're right. The people that are excited, Time Splitters, they announced it's sort of similar. They just announced that, and I sit there and think that I'm up for Time Splitters, and I feel like it's a sort of game that would do well today for a new audience. But for anyone but I don't know, you're caught between that world of trying to please people that, I don't know how many million, 2.5 million people that bought Perfect Dark on the N64. It's right at the end of its life cycle, required the expansion pack and all that kind of stuff, and you sort of got to appeal to those sort of people, because that otherwise, why bother calling it Perfect Dark? And then you've got obviously, but that's not enough for a modern game. So you need how do so I'm delighted it's back. I'm delighted they're investing in it. But I'll have to say this though about Perfect Dark. Sorry, I'm waffling, but it is Daryl Gallagher's studio, and Daryl Gallagher rebooted Lara Croft and Tomb Raider perfectly. That was an amazing reboot. It felt really fresh and new. If you're a fan of Lara Croft, you'd be delighted. But I had never played a Tomb Raider game properly before that game, and that was the first one I played obsessively. And now I'm a Tomb Raider fan. So if he can repeat the trick of Joanna Dark, then great. I look forward to it.
No, yeah, I feel totally like that. I want to see it. I want to see how it turns out. I think Joanna Dark's a great character. I really think she is. I think the gadgets were great, and it was just like. I think it's a great game, and I wish Chris Seaver's Perfect Dark that he was working on was allowed to go on and come out. Then it would have been an awesome game. He had a real great idea for that. I have to look at Joanna Dark, on that game. But I sometimes wonder, like, looking at Banjo and all that, is there an audience still there? I wonder about things like that. I always think about it. Sounds like a great idea, but is it?
I think because the thing is, Banjo-Kazooie, they did a HD sort of remaster of that game for the 360, and they've poured it over to Xbox One. I think a pretty safe thing to do would be to properly remake that. So I think you're going to hit a couple of million sales to that, and it's not going to cost you huge sums of money, because you're not sort of starting from scratch. You kind of are, but you've got the template and the basis there, so you've got a lot of the work's done for you. Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, all those games that sort of were remade. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater last year, they did really well. They certainly made their money back. So it's. I think that's a pretty safe bet. Would a Banjo 3, if they threw that in now, would that do well? I don't know. And I think you almost need to re-engage and restart it rather than which I suspect Perfect Dark's going to do. Beyond Good and Evil 2, which is the thing that wasn't at Ubisoft's press conference and was announced like 20 E3s ago, is a similar thing. Like, I thought to myself, the first Beyond Good and Evil didn't sell very well, and that game was 2005 or something, 4, 3, something like that. It was 20 odd years ago, and you think, well, why bother doing a sequel to that? But they're doing it as a prequel. They're basically taking the idea and starting it again. And that could.
Yeah. But then I always point to Mirror's Edge. Like I equate kind of Beyond Good and Evil and Mirror's Edge as those games that came out, reviewed well, didn't sell particularly well, but there seemed to be this very kind of vocal minority who want a sequel and want more of it. Along comes Mirror's Edge Catalyst, which was a remake / prequel. It wasn't a direct sequel. It was like a reboot, as it were. Didn't sell enough, and Mirror's Edge is once again on hiatus.
The difference with Mirror's Edge, though, that game didn't have any nostalgia to it. Like,
no, that's true.
It's you're only appealing to the same audience that you bought before. Yeah. Whereas you're gonna get like I'm gonna buy Perfect Dark because I used to love it when I was a lad, and it's like I'm not gonna go and get, if they, I don't know, what was a game from 4 or 5 years ago that I played and was, well, that's all right. I'm not gonna have that. I don't have that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited though. It looks, I mean, the trailer looked great.
Honestly, I love the way they updated dancing and all the rest of it. I thought it was great, and it appealed to me because they did it, and so I thought the appeal to me was right, So it's always about getting the right team right. I kind of feel like the team's got to get what it was in the first place. Like a Banjo score, Rare wouldn't do it; they'd farm it out to somebody else, So you need to get what it would be, or what Perfect Dark would be, or what Viva Pinata, whatever it is. I feel like you need to get a team who really likes that game a lot and really gets it, and then they'd probably do a good job of it. But people who kind of get given an IP to play with, I don't think it's going to be very good.
Yeah. Well, hopefully. I mean, the thing with Perfect Dark, it was a really odd game, right? And it was funny, and it was all those sort of things. And interestingly, Perfect Dark Zero, I think, is my least favorite Rare game of all time, right? And that's saying, and that's there are some. They've not always been amazing, those games. And
we all knew that wasn't going to be great. We all knew it from day one, really, for various reasons. So it wasn't surprising that it came out. It wasn't so great.
Yeah.
We have once again forgotten to have a timer running during this episode, despite the fact that I have a clock right here. So once again, this has not been a particularly short show, but we will wrap it up there because we want to keep these vaguely digestible. Grant, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for asking me. I'm honoured to be asked.
Last kind of question on the game.
Last kind of question. Is there anything you're particularly looking forward to for the rest of E3? Anything you're kind of keeping an eye out for?
Well, Breath of the Wild 2, I would love to see that. Say, here it comes. Get a release date for it. That would be awesome. So,
and it's out now.
I mean, even if it was out by Christmas, for God's sake, I'd like to get a date to know when we're going to get it. Like, as opposed to it's coming. I want to know when it's going to arrive. I'd love to know that.
I want to put first time I ever had a countdown for a game was Perfect Dark, actually.
Oh, really?
I remember that very well. Sorry.
Well, fingers crossed for you for Tuesday, Grant. Chris, thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, we are going to be back tomorrow, likely with the Xbox and Bethesda roundups. Plus, there've been a few more showcases, so we might be touching on the big announcements from Devolver and Square Enix. Until then, you can find podcast versions of this if you so choose. If you want to hear it again, or if you've got all the way through all this and just have been ignoring us because you had it in the background, but actually want to go back and listen to what we've said, we're on the podcasting platform of your choice. We are going to be doing these almost every day, pretty much all week. We've got a range of industry guests coming up, so keep your eyes peeled on the YouTube channel. And all of the news from E3, Summer Games Fest, and all the events going on can be found at GamesIndustry.biz.